Many thanks for joining us. This is Worldview on Spectrum TV. Breaking news: just hours after those hostages were released, we see President Trump issuing a new warning to Hamas. The fragile ceasefire already being tested. The president saying disarm or be destroyed. Also here in the U.S., government shutdown day 14. We see federal workers fired and now worth millions of federal workers going unpaid. Still on Worldview, tributes are pouring in for the R&B singer D'Angelo, who died from pancreatic cancer. These and many more stories coming up on Worldview today. Please stay tuned. Many thanks for staying tuned. This is Worldview on Spectrum TV. Let's turn the page now to the Middle East, where Hamas handed over more bodies of deceased hostages to Israel on Tuesday, one sign of progress after a number of apparent setbacks in the days since U.S. President Donald Trump thwarted his plan to end the Gaza war. The bodies were returned after Israel announced it would cut in half the number of humanitarian aid trucks allowed into Gaza in a move to punish Hamas for what Israel called the militant group's violation of its agreement to transfer remains under the ceasefire deal reached last week. Meanwhile, re-emergent Hamas fighters demonstrated they were reasserting control in the Gaza by deploying hundreds of security forces in the street and executing several people they accused of collaborating with Israel. The outlook for Trump's peace plan darkened further when the president threatened Hamas with military strikes unless the militant group disarmed. Trump said at the White House one day after he spoke before the Knesset in Jerusalem, and I quote, "If they do not disarm, we will disarm them, and it will happen quickly and perhaps violently." In the meantime, today we saw aid trucks roll into Gaza and Israel resume preparations to open the main Rafah crossing after a dispute over the return of the bodies of dead hostages that had threatened to derail the fragile ceasefire deal with Hamas. Israel had threatened to keep Rafah shut and reduce aid supplies because Hamas was returning bodies too slowly, showing the wrecks to a truce that has stopped 2 years of devastating warfare in Gaza and freed all living hostages held by Hamas. However, the militant group returned more Israeli bodies overnight, and an Israeli security official said today preparations were underway to open Rafah to Gazan citizens, while a second official said that 600 aid trucks would go in. Hamas returned 4 bodies confirmed as dead hostages on Monday and another 4 bodies late on Tuesday. Still in the Middle East, thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators on Tuesday marched in the northern Italian city of Udine before Italy's World Cup soccer qualifier against Israel, concluding their mostly peaceful protests with clashes involving the police. The march, attended by over 5,000 participants according to preliminary police estimate, wound its way through the city center from late afternoon before the match at the Friuli Stadium, which Italy won 3-0 kickoff at 8:45 p.m. Organizers committees for Palestine's Udine called on Soccer Global Governing Body FIFA to ban Israel from all competitions, saying the team supported occupation policies in the Palestinian territories. Protesters carried an 18-meter Palestinian flag and a large red banner with the demonstration slogan, "Show Israel the red card." A metal statue symbolizing justice held scales in one hand and a red card in the other. In Pakistan, fresh fighting broke out today along the volatile Pakistani-Afghanistan border, killing more than a dozen civilians and troops to shatter a fragile peace after weekend clashes that killed dozens. The weekend fighting was the worst between the neighbors since the Taliban seized power in Kabul in 2021. Despite regular clashing between the security forces along the contested 2,600 kilometers frontier, the Afghan Taliban said more than a dozen of its civilians were killed and 100 wounded as Pakistani forces launched attacks in the early hours of today in the district of Spin Bodak. In a separate development, a U.S. strike on a boat off the coast of Venezuela on Tuesday killed 6 suspected drug traffickers, President Donald Trump said, the latest such operations in recent weeks as the U.S. builds up military forces in the region. The strike is the most recent example of Trump's effort to use U.S. military power in new and often legally contentious ways, from deploying active duty U.S. troops in Los Angeles to carrying out counter-terrorism strikes against drug trafficking suspects. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the strike had been carried out against a designated terrorist organization, but he did not provide any details on which group. Trump also said, without providing evidence, that intelligence confirmed the vessels was trafficking narcotics and also associated with illicit narcotic terrorist networks. A roughly 30-second video which Trump posted appeared to show a stationary vessel in a body of water being hit with a projectile before exploding. On tariff matters, President Donald Trump has threatened trade penalties, including tariffs against Spain, saying he is unhappy with its refusal to raise defense spending to 5% and calling the move disrespectful to Nato. Trump has repeatedly pushed Nato members to spend more on their own defense and cast doubt on Washington's willingness to come to the aid of members who did not spend enough. He said last week while meeting Finland's president that Nato should consider throwing Spain out of the alliance over its refusal to agree to the new commitment. Meanwhile, Spain is a reliable member of the alliance and currently has 3,000 soldiers deployed, said today when asked about Trump's comment. Still in the White House, federal workers are scrambling to figure out if they still have a job after the Trump administration launched a fresh wave of layoffs amid a federal government shutdown for another legal battle over Donald Trump's efforts to drastically cut back the federal workforce. About 4,200 federal employees across 7 agencies were laid off on Friday, the administration has said, although 700 firing at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention were swiftly reversed over the weekend. It remains unclear if Trump, who told reporters that a lot of government workers could be fired, plans to go further. The federal workforce has already shed hundreds of thousands of staff on his watch this year. Also, President Donald Trump has said that the United States must be careful with China, although the relationship between the countries is fair. Trump saying, and I quote, "We have to be careful with China. Look, I have a great relationship with President Xi Jinping, but sometimes it gets tested because China likes to take advantage of people and they can't take advantage of US. But we have a fair relationship with China, and I think it will be fine, Trump said during a meeting with Argentina's President Javier Milei at the White House. Meanwhile, major Chinese airlines urged the Trump administration to abandon a plan after the break. We'll turn the spotlight to the Asian Pacific region and other parts of the world. Do stay joined to us for these and many more stories right after the breather.
Broadening your horizon is what every living being not only genuinely desires, but heartily pursues and intentionally invests in. For in the gathering of men, only those whose minds are in tune with the dynamics of the past, present, and future innovations, inventions, politics, and governance are respected. We are Spectrum Television, and broadening your horizon is our obsession. Rescan your decoder now to connect Spectrum Television on the frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250. That is frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250. Polarization horizontal, and join our online community at spectrumtvlive.ng. For further enquiries, please call 0704 158 5642 or 0704 541 7707. Spectrum Television, broadening.
Many thanks for staying tuned. We turn the spotlight to the Russia war scene, where Russia struck Ukrainian power infrastructure with drones overnight, knocking out electricity supplies in several areas, including in the central of the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Ukrainian Energy Ministry said today. Power grid operator Ukrenergo said power supplies were limited in 7 regions, most in the east. State-run gas firms Naftogaz said a terminal power plant had been hit without identifying the plant. Russia had sharply increased the number and intensity of attacks on Ukrainian energy system in recent weeks, targeting both power plant and gas facilities. In a report, Nato said the Russians had attacked gas facilities 3 times over the past 7 days, including critically important facilities in the Kharkiv, Sumy, and Chernihiv regions. Ukrainian Energy Minister Vyacheslava Hanachok said earlier this month that Ukraine wanted to increase its gas imports by 30% following Russian airstrikes on its gas infrastructure. And in France, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu promised to suspend a landmark pension reform until after the 2027 elections, sacrificing one of President Emmanuel Macron's legacy achievements to ensure the government's survival. By bowing to pressure from leftist lawmakers who rival the 2023 reform, Lecornu has managed to stave off a stark escalations in France's month-long political crisis. The socialists welcomed his concession, saying they would not vote to topple him in no-confidence votes on Thursday, meaning Lecornu will almost certainly live to fight another day. Lecornu's proposal to mothball the pension overhaul threatens to kill off one of Macron's main economic legacies at a time when France's public finances are in perilous state, leaving him with little in the way of domestic achievement after 8 years in office. Elsewhere, President Donald Trump posthumously awarded conservative activist Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. Kirk, the co-founder of the organization Turning Point USA, was speaking at Utah Valley University during the first stop on a college campus tour when he was shot and killed on September the 10th. Trump said he raced back halfway around the globe to present the medal after brokering a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. And he also admitted he didn't have the courage to ask his widow, Erica, to move the date when he realized it would fall on Kirk's birthday. Trump announced he would present Presidential Medal of Freedom to the conservative activist the day after Kirk was fatally shot. Erica Kirk accepted the medal on his behalf on what would have been his 32nd birthday. She was named CEO of Turning Point USA in the days after her husband's assassination.